Brian was so good at what he did with Verizon that a big-time entrepreneur and business owner was like, yo, what do you need to make? I want you on my team. And so it's like blooming where you're planted right now to the point where you become undeniable.
It's an underrated methodology. Be so good at what you're doing. If you can do the things that you don't enjoy really well, people take notice and it creates self-discipline. Now imagine how well you'll do the things that you really do enjoy. Whatever it is that you're doing, do it well. Become undeniable at whatever position you're doing, and the next position and the next position will come that much easier to you.
I think a lot of people struggle with expressing their faith through their business.
There's 0% chance that I'm anywhere near where I am in life without my faith. Our job is to lift people up. It's to touch their hearts. It's to be there for them, to be the steady hand in a storm. And that's what God called us all to do, to add value to other people, to be there for people, to listen, especially when it's bad. We don't get credit in our faith for being faithful when things are good. And hopefully, somehow, this conversation, the example that we set, helps other people to live a little bit better and to have a little bit more peace in their heart.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and man, do we have a treat today. Before we get into our guest, I want to remind you to like, subscribe, review, share, all the fun things that all the YouTube kids tell us to do. But in all seriousness, if you're getting impact, you need to be sharing these episodes. So with us all the way from Pittsburgh, PA, we got my good friend, Brian Hess. He is a construction CEO and mentor, industry leader and influencer, and most importantly, husband and father, and one of my Warriors for Christ brothers. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me. Great introduction, man. Humbled. Thanks, man.
Well, it's a lot of fun for me to have this time with you, and I know everyone's going to get a lot of impact out of this episode because every time I get to spend some time with Brian, he's dropping wisdom nuggets all over the place, and I know we're going to get that today. And so I just enjoy our time together and can't wait for the audience to hear this conversation today. So, man, I didn't have this in my notes, but I know it just because I follow you. You're on episode 621 of your podcast as of this morning. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
So for those that don't follow Brian yet, I will encourage you to do so now, and I'll give him an opportunity at the end of the show to give you all those links and whatnot. He's putting out a podcast every dang day. Let me just tell you how impressive that is, because we drop one every week. And it's work. Like there's a lot of thought and work and just preparation because you want to have as much impact as possible every episode that you put out. He's doing it every day, guys. So speak to that. Like what? And by the way, like he's a very busy man in his business and his home life. So just talk a little bit about the motivation and what's maybe just why you're choosing to do it on a frequent basis. And like the work and prep and thought process that goes into it for you.
Yeah, in the beginning, man, I was, when I thought about doing a podcast, I was like, I could do it once a week. I could do it, once every couple of weeks. I could do whatever I really wanted to do. But I felt like, to really make an impact, how could I do this? How could I arrange this so that it had the biggest impact? And, I realized quickly that by doing that podcast every single day, it wasn't just the audience that was listening. It was my team. It was all the people that I mentor. It was all the people that in some regard I have some level of influence with. Those people were listening to, before I had the podcast, even just the videos that I was putting out on social media. And so it really motivated me. It was like, how can I get the most out of this? How can people get the most out of it? And then for me, man, the kind of unknown thing in the beginning, I never imagined how it would impact my personal discipline to, set a standard that, hey, at this time, every single day, you're not just going to release a podcast, but you're going to do it live. Right. And so for me, that started at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now it's at 8 a.m. because I, needed to be able to get to the gym and do a bunch of other stuff that it was tough to be able to do that, right, and balance all the things that I have going on. So multiple businesses, 4 going on 5 kids, being able to balance all that is tough. And so I moved it back to 8 a.m. But man, the amount of discipline and consistency that it's delivered to my life is such an impact, right? It's just that there's always some surprise in the things that we take massive action on that we get delivered to us as a result of trying to give to others. And that's the one for me. It's like, man, the amount of impact and the frequency and consistency of delivering the show every day, it has forced me into that creative nature that, is pulled out of us when we have to do this. Like, you don't just show up here and interview people. You do some research. You already know that I have 621 episodes, right? So that proves the amount of research that you do to be able to do these types of things. And so for me, I'll go back to the beginning. Episode 1, I always joke around. It was probably 20 minutes and probably took me like 2.5 hours to prepare for. And as you do it, man, hundreds of times, you really figure out how to deliver information, how to speak, in a certain time frame and window, all that kind of stuff. So the evolution of the person is also one of the most important things. You're going to grow by doing these interviews. I'm going to grow by listening and answering the questions. And so I think for the people out there who, consider doing a podcast, man, you'd be amazed at what you're capable of if you force yourself into it, and you'll be amazed at the return that you get trying to give to others.
Yeah, that's so good. And I know, so for me, over the last 2.5 years, I've been really growing my social media personal brand. And that's been important to me through coaching and my pivot from the financial services industry, where I really wasn't able to grow a personal brand because of compliance and all the different stuff. So now that I'm learning that game. And I get asked all the time, hey, Josh, like, how do you come up with topics to talk about? And I give my way, and I'm curious to your answer, because you're putting out amazing content, leadership, business, entrepreneurship content on a daily basis. Where does your inspiration come from daily to be able to deliver on such a high level?
Yeah, it's a variety of things, man, but a lot of it is just kind of what I'm, going through in business, or what somebody else has brought to me through, my mentorship of them. Like, sometimes it's the challenges that I see from a distance that people are going through. So I try to keep it like as real life as possible. But I would say, through that journey of developing that into what it is today, there were times where, I would go to the people that I looked up to, that I followed, whether it be, Ed Mylett or Andy or, somebody like that I followed. And I'd scroll through their content and see something that really stood out to me. And usually that is something you're going through, or something you've been through, something you can relate to. And I think that's the key to it. I think that people try to, create too much content as opposed to just kind of documenting or speaking to what you're going through. You may not be documenting the real life scenario that you're going through, but you can certainly document your feelings by explaining, hey, this is something that I've experienced and this is how I dealt with it, or here's what I learned by doing this incorrectly. I was just having a conversation with one of my buddies this morning that's exiting his company. And I said, hey man, can I invest some money to get you in my business, like half a day a month, to just tell me where the holes are. Tell me, some of the things that we could be doing better. I said, I just feel like there's so many things that, he has learned that I could pull from. And he was like, man, I feel the same. And so, that will create content, right? Whatever I learn from him, I'll be able to then translate that, put it out into the world, and help a lot of other people through those investments that I'm making into different things. And I think that's what you do too, man. It's like, whatever we invest into, each one, teach one, man, like put it out there and see. And you never know the impact you're going to make by being able to share, those experiences or mistakes that we've made with somebody else. You and I have had those conversations about things that we've been through. It's like, man, if I could be through something and it could cost me a lot of time, money, energy, sleepless nights, man, I certainly don't want to see one of my brothers go through the same thing. If I can, help them navigate that or avoid it. And sometimes that's what it takes, man. Sometimes we're all men. We all have egos to some degree. And sometimes that drags us into a lion's den that we don't really belong in. And so if we can help others by explaining that, in some educational way that allows somebody else's, awareness to raise, where they say like, you know what, I had that same feeling, but my ego was dragging me in the wrong direction, or whatever it may be. We could save people a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of heartache, a lot of sleepless nights by just sharing the experiences that we have.
Amen, brother. Amen. And speaking of Ed Mylett, you were able to have him on your show. Talk about that experience, because that's both a mentor of ours. We look up to him greatly. You're able to have a hour-long dialogue on your personal show. Talk about that experience of getting an idol, a hero in the room with you, essentially chopping it up.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. And for me, any interview that I do, I'm trying to make an impact in a way that's different. Like not the typical questions that they would be asked, not the typical research that would be done. And so I'm trying to ask unique questions that really get a different response, that are relatable to me and to the audience. If they're relatable to me, generally speaking, they're relatable to the audience. And so for me, that's, contractors, it's entrepreneurship, it's faith, it's, all the things that you just mentioned about the content that I produce. Like that's what I wanted to talk to him about. And man, it was an awesome interview. It was, a little nerve wracking at first, right? Somebody you look up to at that level. I was lucky enough to have kind of the same experience, not on camera, but off camera with John Maxwell last year. And so that was, that kind of put me in a space where I was like, all right, I can do this, and, I can pull this off, and I can ask, questions that I think are meaningful. And, I think when we frame those questions and we're, our most authentic selves, the conversation really just flows, and sometimes it is hard to get in that space with somebody that you look up to that much, but you realize when you get into the conversation, like, man, they're just like us. They've been walking the same walk. And, so when you can put yourself in that same position and say like, man, they've been through exactly what I've been through, and when I did the research on Ed, really diving in, it reminded me of what he had been through. And so, it kind of normalized him to me, and allowed for a more natural conversation than probably what a lot of people would imagine. Because, when you look up to somebody like that, you never want to come across as a fan, right? Even though that's how you feel internally. Like I also look at myself as, an equal to Ed, somebody I could be in business with to Ed. He's just further down the road than me, right? And so in that regard, it's great to be able to pull that insight out of people and be able to, create relatable moments too, right? Like, one of the things that he said in his interview, I asked him what he was most proud of as a family man. And his response was, that he had been with Christiana since he was 5 years old. He met her when he was 5 years old. He was really proud of that. And then his second answer was that him and his wife, raised their kids, that they, the kids always came home and gave their report cards to them. They didn't, they had help in the home, but not a full-time nanny. And he's like, listen, I'm not shaming anybody that has that. I'm just saying like, that's what I'm proud of. And that's a decision that my wife and I made too, man. And so that was, validating for me. It was like, man, this is, cause sometimes I think, man, am I making the right decisions, right? Am I selling my progress short by making certain decisions? And so when you can get those decisions validated by somebody who is ahead of you, who has made similar decisions that you did, and has ended up in a pretty good place, and, not just financially, but as a man, as a human being, I really respect Ed. And so when you can get that validation through a conversation, man, it feels good, and it feels good to know you're pointing yourself in the right direction.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, I want to get into some of the meat and potatoes because you got so much wisdom to parlay onto the audience. So you've managed to make paving look really cool, which I think is awesome. And I'm pumped to share with our audience how you did it. But before we get into where you started, or I should say, before we get into where you are today, let's go back a little bit where you started, because we all have this entrepreneurial journey. What got you into the construction industry, and what drove your passion to becoming not only a business owner, but really an industry leader?
So it's a crazy story, man. So I spent, a lot of my life in a corporate setting, right? So, my young adult life, I worked for technology companies. And so I ended up as a director of sales for Verizon Wireless, and I was selling primarily to small businesses. And in that sector, construction is a huge portion of what we sold to. And so when I was selling to those construction companies, I was solving problems for them, right? I was solving problems with technology for construction companies primarily. And so I got offered a promotion, and it was either to go to California or Florida. And even back then in 2010, that was a pretty easy decision for me. It's more of an easy decision today, right, of which place I would choose to go to. But I went to South Florida, and the very first appointment that I had, man, was with a construction company owner that was originally born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so at the end of that meeting, he was like, man, you should quit your job and come work for me. And I'm like, dude, where I come from, I was making multiple six figures in my job. I was going to every sporting event. Where I come from, making the kind of money I was making was unheard of, right? So I was like, dude, there's not a chance. I'm in an office that has like razor wire around the yard, bars on the windows. It was in Liberty City in Miami, right? Not the best neighborhood. And so the guy says, if you won't accept my job offer, man, accept an invitation to dinner at my house Friday night. I'm like, all right, cool, man. I'm living in a hotel. I'll take a home cooked meal. I'm a kid from Pittsburgh. And so I start driving to this dude's house, and the houses just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm like, man, this is a far cry from the office in a not so good neighborhood. And I get to his house, and I'm like, dude, who owns the house on the corner? The big gray one. He's like, oh, you probably know him, man. He's a rapper. His name's Ludacris. And I'm like, dude, this is a different world than I was expecting, right? Out of this, paving company and seal coating company. And so over the next year, man, I got to know this guy, and I was trying to just help him as a client of Verizon, try to re-engineer his sales team and helping his nephew, who was the general manager of the company. And finally, one day we were having dinner. Him and his wife took me and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Lori, out to dinner all the time at the best restaurants in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And he looked at me at dinner and he said, hey, man, you tell me how much money you need to make and I'll pay it. If I had, a son like you, if I had somebody like you in my business, I wouldn't have all these problems. So you name the number and I'll pay it. And I was like, well, shit, man, I've been waiting to hear that my whole life, right? And so I said, give me until the 1 year point of when I move down here so that I can make sure I'm not leaving, Verizon in a bad spot, and I'll join your company. And so that was October of 2011. I entered the industry. And when I got into it, man, I instantly saw the contrast between a corporate setting and private business, which was, a large lack of information and education, just access to the information that would allow people to be better educated. And so I started doing that myself, training. I brought a lot of salespeople from Verizon over into the construction industry, proved that could be successful. I took really good notes when I was being trained on the industry. And then I created that into a training manual. That training manual eventually became Top Contractor School. And so, yeah, man, that's how I got into the industry. And that was a pretty big company, multiple 8-figure company when I got there. And we almost doubled the size of that company within 24 months of me being there. And so I started to figure out hey, man, if I could do this on my own, I could really make some noise, and I could really be innovative in an industry that needs it badly, right? Construction is not typically your place that you're going to see cutting edge innovation from. And so that's kind of the path that I took. I figured out how to do this the way that we do it, driven by technology, asset light business. We don't own any equipment here at the Pavement Group. We just subcontracted out to 2,300 subcontractors around the country that own the equipment, that are looking to work with people like us. And so, so I entered the industry in 2011. And then opened this business in 2018.
Such a remarkable journey, an awesome story where there's so many lessons to pull out. But one of the lessons I want to pull out there is being so good at what you're doing now that it makes others take notice. Brian was so good at what he did with Verizon that a big time entrepreneur and business owner was like, yo, what do you need to make? I want you on my team. And so it's blooming where you're planted right now to the point where you become undeniable and you give yourself options. But too many people are poo-pooing the spot that they're in right now because it's not where they want to be later, and not realizing the opportunity and the next relationship they could make could be the one that changes their entire life.
Two things there, man. It's funny that you used that word. So in 2022, our word of the year was undeniable. It was become undeniable. Like the company motto was to become undeniable. And I think it's an underrated methodology of like, dude, be so good at what you're doing. And it doesn't matter. That's my point. Number two is, dude, if you are currently mopping floors, I've done it. You've probably done it, right? Mop floors, work jobs that we didn't enjoy, whether that's when you're 16, 18, whatever it is, you're not always going to enjoy everything that you do. If you can do the things that you don't enjoy really well, people take notice and it creates self-discipline. If you can do the things that you don't enjoy really well, now imagine how well you'll do the things that you really do enjoy. And so as you build a business, as I've been able to build this business, like I spend almost all day now in my gift and doing the things that I really love to do. There's a very small pile left that I do that isn't in my gift. And those are things that just have to be done. But, our goal as a company now is to find those people, to your point, that are doing really well in something that, maybe they don't enjoy every aspect of. Plug them into, this place, we call it a dream factory, man. It's like somebody has a dream, they can plug it into this place and they can get there a lot faster. And so you pull them into here, they can create, the momentum, the income, they can be themselves. We got artists on staff. We have people who had PhDs in physical therapy that left their career in medicine to come and join our team, because culture matters, right? Having people around that want to work with other high achievers. And once you plug all those people together, man, it's impossible to take a bunch of winners and put them together. Winners that have the ability to see the name on the front of the jersey way more often than they care about the name on the back of the jersey. Everybody cares about that name. But if you can get the people that care more about the team, they can check their ego, and they're high achievers, there's like nothing. I could take this team, bro. We could build boats and we'd do it well. It doesn't matter. I don't know anything about building boats, but I can guarantee you we'd find the right mentorship, we'd find the right connections, and we'd have a high achieving team at doing it in a very short period of time, just because that's who we hire, right? And to your point, it's like, dude, whatever it is that you're doing, do it well. Become undeniable at whatever position you're doing, and the next position and the next position will come that much easier to you.
And forget the name on the back of the jersey half the time. TJ Watt's bobblehead sitting behind you. We talked a little bit about TJ before the show, before we started recording, because he's a former Badger. But he's undeniable. He could have rested on his laurels of being a Watt. His brother's going to go down as one of the greatest defensive ends of all time. First ballot Hall of Famer, for sure. TJ doesn't want to be just his little brother. He wants to be better than his big brother. And you were talking about, tell the audience about how he controls the crowd in Pittsburgh, because we were talking about that. It's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, you talk about, undeniable. I mean, the dude's work ethic and his commitment to doing the job. He's relentless, right? And this is, I often say this, like, you go to a Steeler game, man, this is a blue collar city, right? And so, the average income in this city is not through the roof. And so for people to buy season tickets and for the Steelers to be sold out season ticket waiting list for as long as I've been alive, that's a commitment to the fans that the fans make to support that team. Well, the fans in those stands, man, they want to see people that are just like them. And TJ Watt resembles what blue collar work ethic looks like. And so the fans connect with him on a different level, right? And that dude, man, I was telling Josh before we started, all he has to do is do this. And the entire stadium, 65, 67,000, depending on the Sunday, they're going crazy, man. And he can, the same thing, he can quiet the whole stadium in a second. But it's because people relate to him. There's a work ethic connection that people say, that dude is just like me. He might be on a football field making hundreds of millions, but he's just like me, man, putting in the work, caring about his family, caring about his teammates, caring about his city. And that's what makes it. And so we are examples of the same thing, man, or we're not, right? To your point, like if that dude had an ego, if he was some diva, he wouldn't get that same response,
Yeah,
man. People
it
would
wouldn't
not
resonate.
respond when he requested. It wouldn't be the same. And so, that's a lesson to all of us, man. If you can become one with the team, with the people, with the community, you're going to get all the support that you need when you make yourself an undeniable force in whatever it is that you're doing.
And he will be revered by Pittsburgh for the rest of his life, like Joe Thomas is in Cleveland.
100%.
Because of that work ethic and commitment to the team. All right, 100%. So speaking of, you've set out to provide remarkable service for your clients and develop the next generation of construction professionals. So we have a lot to cover here. I want to move into that. And you also mentioned Top Contractor School. I'm not going to let that go by. We'll talk about that in a bit. But let's start with the Pavement Group, CEO of the Pavement Group, of the most advanced pavement management company in the country. In a nutshell, tell us about the launch of the Pavement Group and its mission ongoing today.
So the easiest way to describe what we do, so we did business in 44 states last year. We service the whole country, all 50 states. We've done business in Canada. And we serve, some of the largest brands in the country. So if you shop there, you do your banking there, you pump your gas there, you get your packages from them. If they have hundreds or thousands of properties, they're either a customer now or they soon will be, right? Those are our target clients. And so when I was, growing up in this business, I saw this gap in the ability for these property owners. Just imagine any retailer you can think of that has thousands of properties. Well, they don't know, it seems you walk over these things all the time, but if you're walking through a parking lot at a home improvement retailer or a regular retailer, and there's a pothole there, or there's, the parking lot is destroyed, there's a chance, man, that the facilities manager or whoever's responsible for that property doesn't even know that hole exists or that something is wrong with that parking lot because they have so many properties, right? And these corporations, man, they're not going to invest the amount of money into being able to oversee that in that much detail, right? Because it's not a good financial investment for them. What is a good financial investment for us is to assist in solving that problem by creating visibility and transparency in an entire portfolio of properties. And so that's what we set out to do in 2018 was to develop a new process and then technology to go along with that process that would create that visibility so that if Josh is sitting in Wisconsin and he manages hundreds or thousands of properties for his company, he could click a button and walk every property in the country with the click of a button on his computer in the comfort of his own office, right? And never have to get on an airplane, the expense of travel and time that these people incur to be able to do that. And then worse than that, man, like by the time they get done, it would need done all over again. And so these companies needed a partner. They needed a resource that was willing to go out and do this on their behalf. And so we function as a regular contractor, competitive bid against other contractors, just like everybody would be familiar with. But we also do complete portfolio management where we go out there, assess all these properties, create that portfolio view for them online, and then simplify their spending. So I like to say, you'll like this one, we're kind of like a financial management company for parking lots. Like we advise people on how to better invest their money into these assets so they get the most life out of them. Because, in our world, man, a parking lot can last, 15 years or it can last 20 years, it can last 25 or 30, depending on how you maintenance it, what you invest into it to increase the longevity. Well, what happens in a lot of these portfolios is they get a little bit out ahead of that, right? So they're kind of playing from behind. They're in a reactive state. And so we advise them on how to get from reactive to proactive, and it saves them millions of dollars if it's done correctly, where they're not replacing parking lots too soon. They're on a good life cycle management program. And so that's what we do. We take that whole complicated conversation I just had with you, and we take it off their plate and put it on ours. And we manage those things effectively for, at this point, well over 100 clients, inside of our company that we provide those types of services to.
That's amazing. So do you even refer to yourself as a pavement company anymore? Or is it more like, do you describe it more like the financial management in your somewhat, let's call it an elevator pitch?
We do both, man. Because, some clients want us to function in a competitive nature. And so we do that, right? But we always talk about all of it. Like, hey, we can be this for you, or we can be this for you. because a lot of companies, it's so advanced, what we found, like the thinking is so advanced that sometimes people can't say yes to the bigger picture right away without getting to know us first. And so we present all the aspects of what we do. And sometimes, man, it starts with us replacing a stop sign for somebody, right? Just solving a problem somebody else couldn't solve. We go out there and make that happen for them. And then the next thing you know, we've got, multiple 7-figure, 8-figure contracts annually with these clients that help us, grow and scale the business. And in return, we're saving them, millions of dollars a year in their budget that otherwise, would just be wasted.
All right. Switching gears. How are you able to onboard your national team to align with this big vision, right? Because ultimately provide the remarkable service that your brand promises, but nationally, like, it's hard enough to do that in one office building, right? I think any leader will agree with that. Any entrepreneur for sure has dealt with getting everyone to buy into the vision. And that's part of the work I do with EOS, getting that vision from the leader all the way down to the rank and file. You had to do this on a national level. So talk about that and how, and I bet some of the answer is the podcast and your leadership, but I want the audience to hear how you've really permeated that nationally.
Yeah. So I think just like any business, you start with a small nucleus of people, and those are people that I'd had experience with in the past, people that were handpicked to join the team. And we were fairly familiar with a good number of contractors, nowhere near 2,300 like we have now. But, we started saying, like, what could we do? And this is kind of where Top Contractor School comes in. It's like, how can we give to these contractors across the country that are going to help us? How can we teach them what we know? Because they're going to be the guys out there doing the work that we can't do, right? Like, we don't even own the equipment to be able to do the work. So if we can give to them, they're going to reciprocate. And that's what makes for a great partnership. And so today, man, a good note for you is we spend more money in marketing to contractors to gain more contractors than we do on customers. And so how it happens is brick by brick, man, it's operating procedures, validating things. We're lucky to have technology available to us where photos and videos of progress that's happening on sites, we can create a completely transparent process for our clients. One of the things that I've said to our subcontractors over the years is, dude, if you could click a button and order a pizza at Domino's and you can see it going through the oven, there's no reason why we can't update our clients, twice a day, 3 times a day on the progress that's happening, any issues that we run into, things like that. So what we've done, man, is we've created these processes that we have to follow and our contractors have to follow for our clients. And by doing that, man, and teaching them the process that allows us to serve the largest brands in the country, we're also in turn making them a better local business, right? Because we're teaching them what it takes to be able to do business with these. We're bringing Wall Street to Main Street, right? And so as we do that and we help them kind of work through this process of taking pictures, planning properly, creating maps and transparent phasing that allows these projects to be done without disrupting, or at least minimally disrupting, a retail store or a hotel or a restaurant. We're actually giving them the knowledge and the resources to be better contractors in their own local markets with the customers that want to do business with them. So step by step, man, it's picking the right contractors is number one. Not everybody's going to be a great contractor. We don't do huge jobs anywhere in the country without having a one-on-one conversation, and as often as possible. And I'd say a lot of times, not every time, but the vast majority of times, we are meeting with those contractors in person. We're looking at their yard. How is their equipment? Is it clean? Is it organized? You can tell a lot from online these days, but nothing's ever going to replace the look at people in the eye, shaking their hand, and then talking through the process of, like, this is what our client expects. Can you deliver this? What kind of technology exists? Can we speak to the people who are going to be doing the job in the field? Are you going to have a project manager? We're going to have a project manager. And so we just teach this whole process, man. And we follow that through a technology-driven process that we've built inside of our own systems. And the client experience and the contractor experience is exceptional because of how we've developed the process.
So good. Well, you're kind of bleeding into my next question because it's getting into what you created in Top Contractor School. So this institution was created in response to your org's health and success. So talk about now how Top Contractor School came to fruition and the impact that you're pouring. Well, you even mentioned before it came from that the sales and training playbook. And but where did the vision come from that? And now it's grown into this huge thing. I just want to hear how that came to fruition and now what you see it as and what you see it going into the future as.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, man, when I got into the industry, I was like, man, there's such a gap here of information. And so the simplest way to describe it, Brad Lee says, it's like, how do you take the information from the people that have it and give it to the people that need it, right? And so Top Contractor School started as a conduit to do just that. It's like, how do we take the information that we have personally now and get it to other people? And honestly, man, when I started it, I never imagined, that it would be what it is today. I knew it would be large because there was such a need in the industry, but now it's turned into this, like, literally, pretty much worldwide at this point, because we got some people overseas as well. But, between Canada and the United States and overseas, we've had 750 plus people go through, companies go through our programs in some way, shape, or form. And so, it started as sales and marketing training, leadership training, the stuff that I was good at. And then quickly, man, these guys started showing up that knew the field stuff. And so we started teaching operations, like how do you recruit the right people for the field? How do you create culture within a field crew that's, paving and shoveling asphalt? And, it's hard work. And so how do you teach that? How do you create the teamwork necessary? And so, we have former athletes and all the people that know how to build teams and know how to, create that winning culture that transcends sports and business. It's just what winners do, right? And so in the beginning, it was just getting the information to those people. And then over time, man, it just became clear to me that the community was built. It's like you put people together. We had, in the first sales mentorship program that we did, we had an Instagram chat. That Instagram chat went on for a year, dude. And then eventually people were like, hey, man, we should have like weekly calls or something so we could all get together. And I was like, all right, well, let me see what's happening in another industry that maybe we can pull from. And so we started a program. It was every week we would have a call and talk about a different topic, kind of like a mastermind type of thing, information led by me, but discussed by all. And then, within that group, we ran that for a year. And the owners and leaders said, like, hey, man, we'd like to get together in person and we'd like some privacy to be able to talk about some of the things that, owners and leaders deal with that we don't want to talk about in front of all these other people. And so that's when the Top Contractor School Inner Circle was formed. So I literally just kept creating things by the demand of the people and the demand of the industry. And so now, man, we have the most awesome group of people, man. It's like my kids look forward to seeing them. The kids are in the office. We do 2 retreats and 2 meetups per year. So our next retreat is at the Naples Grand in January. So Ed will be speaking at that event. We had John Maxwell last year in January. And so it's been incredible, dude. It's been one of the greatest joys of my life has been watching these companies grow because these people become family to me, man. It's like, when you invest time into people, they get that close to you and they start winning at a high level. They go from $250,000 to $5 million in revenue or $3 million to $20 million in revenue. And it's not the money, man. It's the impact and the families that are impacted and the employees. K&L Industries out of Portland, Oregon, they're a second chance employer. And you see these guys that, have been in some bad trouble, right? And they get out and this company gives them an opportunity to rebuild a life. And if we can have some small impact on that, man, and make some small difference that you can watch from a distance, the difference that it's making in these people, that is really what it's all about. But to keep it simple, man, one of the things we say all the time is, we try to take people that enter the construction industry. They're good tradespeople. They know the craft. We take them from having a job with a tax ID number, right? The business is running them. They're not running the business. And we teach them how to build a company. And because the freedom that they seek is actually in building a company. It's not in owning a company, which is a job with a tax ID number.
Yes.
What I said to Ed on our interview is like, if you do that, man, you don't build freedom. You just build a bigger cage, right? And so
yes,
it might feel temporarily like freedom because you get to walk around in a little bit bigger bubble with a little bit of freedom, but you're still, you're still a slave to that company. And so what we try to do is be able to take those people who are so talented in so many different areas and either complement them with additional people inside their company. We teach them how to take the org chart. This is, for EOS, take the org chart or the accountability chart and expand the org chart this way, or take the accountability chart and widen it where there's more people on the leadership team that can help carry the load. And like I said, man, the impact of that on my life personally, on our company, just having community that you can rely on, there's nothing like it, man. Mentorship is one piece. Having community, brothers and sisters that you can rely on, and that no matter what kind of pickle you get yourself into, there's going to be people that show up to help you get through it. It literally, man, makes you feel unstoppable.
Yes, I agree. And it's rare nowadays, particularly for entrepreneurs, where it is a lonely field. And like you said, maybe a contractor with a tax ID that's a boss and slave to himself or herself. It's rare to be in rooms where people want you to win, because your friends are going to try and tear you down. They're going to try and destroy your dreams. They're going to try and shit on you here and there because you're trying to outgrow where they are currently at. And so if you can find rooms like this, so I encourage you, because I know we have some contractors, business owners that listen, get in touch with Top Contractor School. Get in touch with Brian. Continue to look into that as a place where you have others wanting you to win and can pour into you to help you get better. So anyone that's listening today, that is pulling on your heart a little bit, make a choice and act on that, because Brian's created a incredible environment of others wanting you to win. So like when I was in Vegas at Ben Newman's thing, in a room where everyone wants you to win, and people doing big things. I mean, the minimum cost to get there was like $7,500, right? So people are doing big things. It was not a inexpensive event to be at, but everyone in the room wanted you to win. And that's so invigorating when the rest of the world is trying to pull you down.
There's nothing like it, man. And for those people out there, I was running late getting to this interview because I was talking to a guy that, still can't make the decision to jump yet. But he is literally, bro, I couldn't describe a better fit for what we do. But they've been alone for so long that they almost can't process it right away, what that is. It doesn't seem real to them, right? It seems like there's got to be a catch. Like, what is it? And it's like, no, man, there really are people out there that want you to win.
And that's what I've created with Kairos Financial for financial advisors, is a community, because these companies throw up walls to keep everyone apart, mostly because they're scared of advisors getting recruited by other firms, when in reality, the collaboration can help you serve your clients better. It can help you feel less lonely, can help contribute to others wanting you to win more than just you want to win. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And you were quoted as, "No one wins alone. Your circle is your future." And I love that quote. So thanks for giving me another platform to nail this message in. That message behind that quote is so important. And I think you're just nailing it there with what you're doing with Top Contractor School, and then obviously inside your own businesses. So I had a question come up in my Book and Bourbon Club last month, and I would love to bring it to this conversation, as I know you'll be able to provide some leading industry insights. So hiring in the contractor space, quick to fire, slow to hire. And I'm wondering what you have to say about that, because there's even interesting enough, someone in the group said, I asked my whole team, who wants to make $100,000? And everyone raised their hand. I said, now and then he said, and if you want to do this, I have a bulletproof plan for you to do this. You just have to come see me. Guess how many went and saw him?
0.
You're 0. You absolutely nailed it. And so we got on this discussion, like, why is that? Where does that come from? Like, literally just threw that out there on his own team. So as you think about that in the context of that, and we had another guy that in the contractor space that was struggling with finding the right people for his team. I guess the question would be, what are your best practices for building a strong team and hiring a strong team?
Number one thing is, if you have a hiring problem or recruiting problem, you don't actually have a hiring or recruiting problem. You have a marketing problem. And, that is what we talked about earlier. It's documenting what you got going on in your company. It's showing the culture, being authentic, the frequency and consistency at which you do that. If we put a job posting up today, we'd have a significant number of applicants by tomorrow with $0 in ad spend, just social media presence, because we've created community around that. And it's probably the most frequent thing that people say to me, man, when they join TCS is like, there was the guy I was talking to before I got here. I just can't find these office personnel. And I'm like, yeah, no wonder, bro. Nobody knows you exist. Nobody knows who you are, what you do. And so if they have the option of working for this guy or working for us, and I'm out there every day and I'm preaching what I'm preaching and people can connect with that, they're going to work for me over him. It's less risk. They know more about me. So think about that. When you're building a personal brand, you're building a business brand online, it's not just to generate clients. In fact, it's more to generate employees and talent and attract, most importantly, the people that are most like the culture. Like we don't really get bad fits in the culture that often. If we do, it's like a minor issue. Here's a fact for people. 5.5 years this business has been around. 0 people have resigned from this company and 7 have been asked to leave. That's it. Outside of that, and I would absolutely attest it to the frequency and consistency of, my personal brand and the company showing up online. And when you show people what it looks like to be part of this, when you show people what it looks like to be on a winning team, they want to be part of it. They naturally want to be part of it. I'll give you an example. The last hire that we had is a girl from Charlotte, North Carolina. She originally grew up in Pittsburgh, was living in Charlotte. We documented somebody's promotion in the office who was a friend of hers. She saw that. She started digging into our social media. You guys can go listen to this story. There's a podcast, a broadcast through my YouTube channel called The Perks in Paving, and you'll find it. It's the last episode that just dropped here. So it'd be like the week of November 10th. But she just started this week, right? Her name's Laura. And so Laura started with us. She got recruited here by our social media because she started going down the rabbit hole after she saw this video of us celebrating her friend's promotion into sales, right? This is a girl who was a PhD in physical therapy, left her job in medicine, came here, now is, making a move into sales, which will be a multiple 6-figure income for her. She was making 6 figures just barely in the medical field and hated her life. Her husband is now working for our company, who was also a PhD in physical therapy. And now this girl, who was she still is a First Form person, right? So she's affiliated to First Form, fits our culture perfectly. And all she did was see in our social media a lot of people that were having fun that seemed just like her. And so for those people out there that are struggling, I say this to the guys at TCS with love, and I say this to the audience with love. Either you're not doing a good enough job displaying who you are, or you're not good enough of a leader yet for people to want to work for. Either way, man, you got work to do. And so if you can be a leader that people want to work for, and then most importantly, you can put that on display so that, and dude, listen, I'm not delusional. I don't believe that everybody loves me or that everybody thinks I'm a good leader. But the people that believe what I believe think I'm a good leader. The people that believe what I believe want to be part of this team. And that's who we're looking for, man. We're looking for those people that are looking for something better, that can put a smile on their face every day, that when they come to work, they feel better having been here than not being here, right? This is an infectious place that when you walk into it, you don't want to leave. And so that's what we've created. And so it's our job as leaders to create that environment and then put that environment on display.
Oh man, I told you guys this was going to be good today. Just even that last few minutes there was worth your price of entry. So, which is free, by the way. That's why you need to share the show. But but that was freaking awesome because you're so spot on. You don't have a hiring problem. You have a marketing problem. What most people think is either social media is the bane of existence or it's just a personal platform or whatever other negative thought they have. It is marketing 100%. If I see you and you're just a normal person on social media that I don't, we're acquainted, we're friends, whatever, and you're constantly playing the victim, I would never hire you. First of all, I'm going to block you from my feed. I may not unfriend you, but I'm going to hide you because I don't want to see your shit. But second of all, I would never hire you. And you may want to work for me, but I would never hire you because all you're using your social media platform is to complain, bitch, moan, whatever it may be. And I know right away you're not my people. Conversely, if you're an employer and you're looking for great people, what Brian just said is a master class, because you got to exhibit the culture that you're providing so that people are attracted to it. That's why Andy Frisella does not have to put out a job posting. People are lining up the door to work at First Form. That's why Brian Hess is attracting people from North Carolina just based on his social media and based on the podcast and the value he's providing. And like attracts like. So when you're exhibiting who you are as a leader, the people that want to follow you will go to you. Those that don't want to follow you will stay away. And those aren't your people anyhow. So you're not for everyone. You're for the people that are meant to be for you. So good, brother.
100%, man. And I don't want people to miss the fact that, like, listen, man, my mentor who's been here for the last week and a half, he said something yesterday. The old quote is thrown around: you got to change the people or you got to change the people, right? Everybody has heard that quote, meaning you either got to make an impact with the people or you got to replace the people. And he said, if you want to say you got to change the people or you got to change the people, you should first write that on your own mirror. Meaning, you better look at yourself, figure out how to change yourself before you try to change others. And for me, man, listen, being a leader is a heavy burden to bear, but it's one that if you choose it, go all in, man. Work on yourself every day. Always look for those gaps that somehow that you can get better. Own your mistakes. Be that person for other people. Be the steady hand in a storm for people. And you'll attract those people, man, that are looking for that in their own life. They're looking to be fulfilled. And it's not always about money, man. Money matters, but it's never the first thing on the list for people. It's like people would always take less money to work at a place that energizes them because they know that the more money's going to come eventually anyway, right? Yep. I tell people this, dude, you will never be underpaid for a long period of time because it's just not how life works. Nobody wants to lose the best employee. Because if you're underpaid for a long period of time, what's going to happen, Josh?
I'm going to recruit her away.
Yeah, somebody's going to get you, and they're going to pay you more. So you're going to figure out what you're worth as long as you're always kind of scanning that. The people that want more than what they're worth up front, it always inverts on you, man. You get knocked back down the ladder. So, like, your value, you got to make it, the word you used earlier, you got to make it undeniable, where people pay you because they're afraid to lose you. They wouldn't want to lose you, right? And that's my theory is this. I always wanted to be paid just a little bit less than what I'm worth. Job security and motivation, right? I'm always reaching. I'm always safe. I never got to worry. If I'm paid more than what I'm worth, something goes sideways in the company, what's happening to me? I'm the first person gone. And I'm valued a lot if I'm at that spot where I'm just a little bit less than what I'm worth. And it always is going to motivate me. It's always going to keep me looking forward. And I'm always going to feel safe and secure.
Yep. And you're an asset until you're a liability.
100%.
Right? So if you're constantly just underperforming what you're being paid, and all of a sudden the business takes a little bit of a downturn, you are just like Brian said, you're the first one they look at.
Yep.
Line item. First line item. Doesn't have a name next to it until it has a name next to it.
No question.
So, all right. I would be remiss. I know we're running out of time, but we would definitely be remiss if we didn't talk about how faith in God has played such a pivotal role in both of our lives. But in particular, I think a lot of people struggle with expressing their faith through their business. And I know that your faith is one with you, and you have no problems, no qualms in talking about how faith has played a role in you. So let's touch a little bit on that and how you integrate it with your being and your business, and aren't scared to share that faith because you wear it on your sleeve so well and articulate it so well. I just want others to experience that from you.
Yeah, the best way that we can share our faith, man, is through how we live. It is not a conversation all the time. It's an example more often than it is a conversation. And, you know, to me, and I always butcher this quote, I should really look it up sometime so I can get it right. But it's like, man, you know, live intentionally, live with purpose, live in alignment with the Lord, because, dude, you might be the only Bible somebody ever reads. And so, you know, for me, it's how I interact with people. It's how I take time to listen to people's challenges. It's how I, you know, recruit people by demonstrating who I really am. Like not some version of who I am. I'm not marketing some dude that is not me. I'm just living that out. And I think, you know, if you go back into the scripture, man, like that's what Jesus wanted for all of us, is to live in a way that glorified God, right? That glorified the mission that we all have to end up in the hands of the Lord, right? And so at the end of the day, if we demonstrate that every day, it becomes, you know, and I use John Maxwell, man. He's like my longest standing hero, man. It's when you're around John Maxwell, you just feel something different. Like, he doesn't always talk about his faith. It's not always the first thing that he talks about, but you know there's something there, right? And so for me, that's it. And I get the question all the time, like, how do you juggle all these things? How do you stay calm in the storm? How do you, and I always say, I'm glad you asked, right? It gives me an opportunity to frame that. Now, one thing I will say for those Christians out there that are trying to have those conversations and are maybe a little uncomfortable, for me, man, I don't, you know, I'm not like beating people over the head with a Bible, because that's what was done to me when I was young, and it didn't work for me, right? It turned me off. I had this conversation about a sales strategy this morning in our office. It's a long game, man. Sales strategy is not really selling people sometimes. It's just educating them. It's providing them the information. It's providing them an example of a solution to a challenge. And for people in life, man, like, I could sit in this seat and tell you, like, I wouldn't be sitting here without my faith, man. There's 0% chance that I'm anywhere near where I am in life, both from a financial standpoint, but most importantly, a fulfillment and stability standpoint, without my faith, you know, without reading scripture every day, right? Without leaning into conversations about faith, without giving people grace, especially when they don't deserve it. You know, when you said, you know, hire slow and fire fast, I have a different opinion, man. I say lean in, bro. I just had a conversation with somebody last week, and I said, brother, if this place is causing you this level of, you know,
anxiety or stress,
then I would ask you to leave here. But if it's not, if it's something outside of here, if it's family, if it's something else, if it's finances, I'm going to walk with you, man, and we're going to make it better together. And I've done that so many times, man, and like, it doesn't always work, right? Sometimes you got to ask people to leave because it just, you know, turns toxic or whatever. You know, sometimes people can't get it. But Jesus didn't go tell us, man, to hang out with all the people we agree with, or hang out with all the people that get it right. Go, you know, love on the people that think how we think. And so, you know, in a business, people see what other people go through, you know, those people in the business. And so I believe that Jesus would tell us to fire really slow and do everything we can, man. And I say it in our company. We will always be the company that gives people too many chances, not enough, because people pay attention. And so if I don't care about you, Josh, and I'm like, you know, I'm over here saying like, yeah, you won't believe what Josh was doing, and I'm talking about employees behind their back and I'm firing them fast, bro, they see themselves in you.
Yeah.
They see themselves in you. And so for me, it's like, man, the Bible tells us, give people grace, man. Be there for them. And there is a cutoff for that. You know, Jesus flipped tables over too, right? So like, you know, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows, even in the Bible. But at the end of the day, man, our job is to lift people up. It's to touch their hearts. It's to be there for them, to be the steady hand in a storm. And that's what God called us all to do, is to add value to other people, to be there for people, to listen, especially when it's bad, right? It's easy dude, we don't get credit in our faith for being faithful when things are good. We get credit when the storm is arriving and somebody can say, like, you know what? I'm going to check my ego and I'm going to do what I didn't want to do because I know it's what's right for my community, my family, for God, for all of the above, because I'm going to get my time back that I can spend on better things. And I'm going to get over this thing that I've been stuck on for all this time, right? I've been through that. You've been through that. Yep. Dude, people are just trying to figure it out just like us, right? And so the Bible calls us to be there for people. And, you know, for me in business, bro, this is my ministry, man. And I don't, you know, that doesn't mean that you got to be a Christian to work here. That means Jesus told us love all people.
That's right.
And so for me, man, it's like what's going on in the world, you know, people want us to take sides all the time. Dude, I'm on the side of loving people. I'm on the side of being there for people. And I'm on the side of, you know, trying to be the best example that I can be as a husband, as a father, most importantly, as a man of God, as a leader, as a brother, as a friend. And hopefully, somehow, man, this conversation, the example that we set, maybe the bad example that we set, helps other people to live a little bit better and to have a little bit more peace in their heart. And we won't have all this fighting and war going on in the world
and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And so, but I believe it takes us being that example of being able to lean into the conflicts, man. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it's painful to listen to people's problems. Sometimes, I just said this in our leadership meeting last week. Dude, sometimes people are sharing their problems with me as their leader. Dude, I got bigger problems than what they're talking to me about in that moment. That's not the point, dude.
It's not a comparison game.
Jesus didn't tell anybody about his problems, man. He just bared it for all of us. And so, you know, for me, I'm never going to be even close to that, but I'm going to do my best to try to live the best way that I know how, man. Work in progress every day. I go to small group with, you know, people that are like us, and we share, dude, we got all the same problems. We got all the same challenges. They might be packaged different, but they're all the same. And so for me, man, that example of faith, you know, hopefully through how we live, man, both of us can lead a lot of people to a better life in that sense. And I think we do it far more often by how we live than any words that we could share.
Yeah. Amen. Well, I want to say this before I ask you my last quick question is, you're like a walking Yoda, right? And I know I'd say that in a very serious sense, and I know you're humble, so you're not, maybe not take it, but you helped me through one of the darkest times of my life. And I'm so thankful to God that our paths have crossed and that we get to experience some time together because, and most, I've been open and honest on my podcast, but most of you know that I had a former employee that sued me in a really hurtful way. And Brian has been there as former business partner and employees that have attacked him. And it was his wisdom that helped me get through my own ego to make a wise decision. And so you need to find rooms and people like Brian in your lives that can give you that Yoda type wisdom from experience to help you get past yourself and do the right thing for you and your family. And so I just want to thank you publicly for the wisdom and the friendship that you have provided me.
Yeah, brother, man, I'm glad that God chose me to go through it so I could share it, you know, and that's, you know, at the end of the day, it's part of what we were just talking about. It's like, that's what it's all about, man. And we don't think about this at the foundation of that, dude. We don't get to share that unless we spend the time. Right.
Yeah.
And so that the investment of that time and those people around you, do it as often as you can. To your point, find those rooms, man. And then, dude, we didn't know each other that well. And I was like, dude, it was like God pulling it out of me. Like, you got to step up and say something, man. Cause I could feel the same pain in you that I had been through. Right. And like, I'm like, man, I wish I would have made this decision sooner. I wish I would have, you know, because it is, man, it's a fact of life. It's like you feel all kinds of ways about the scenario and you're stuck in your own way. I've been there, dude. And so to be able to use that pain for good for somebody else, man, is what I think we're all out to do. And so my pleasure, man.
All right. So what's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that most others would disagree with?
I think the unpopular belief that I have is what's going on in our world is completely manipulative and evil marketing that not everybody is aware of. And, I think that when you become more one with your faith, kind of spend a lot more of those quiet moments, you start to see the things in the world that aren't so good. And that's an unpopular, thing. For many years, there were things that my wife said to me that I said, like, dude, I would rather like die in a burning building than believe some of the things that she would tell me. And over time, I started to read more. I started to lean in more. I started to listen more, and I started to follow my own intuition instead of listening to, what's out there in the world, the programming that's happening to our kids, to us, to the whole world. And so now I always find myself asking, what's the other side of that? What could be happening that we're not hearing about? What is, keeping people watching the television and listening to the news and all the things that, push us emotionally and spiritually in the wrong direction in life.
Yep.
And I don't want to believe that, there's that many evil people out there in the world. I really don't want to believe it. But I think that the more that we lean into our intuition, we realize that there's something else going on out there that's not very good. And so the only way that we can protect ourselves, man, is to figure out what's going on inside of us, make sure that we are the best, right? Our phrase of the year for 2024 is personal excellence. It's like, be the best you, man. Be the best leader, be the best father, be the best husband, be the best example of a man of God that you can be. And when you are the best that you can be, when you feel great about yourself and you have some self-confidence and you can spend that quiet time, you're going to figure out a lot of what's going on out around you. And then the second piece of that is not being afraid to speak out about it and doing it in a way that actually helps people see. Sometimes I listen to people who are speaking out about these kinds of things, and I think, man, that's not going to be helpful because the people who aren't listening aren't going to hear you, right? So for me, I try to be, again, that example of like, man, maybe there's another way. And having those conversations without trying to offend people or turning people off. And everybody has their own method. You should be yourself. But for me, it's like, man, I wish more people realized, what had the heightened level of awareness that I know you do and I do, to see some of the things that are going on in the world so you can protect your family and protect your kids from some of those things that are out there that are just no good, man.
100% agreement. All right. Where can people follow you? Should they want to get in touch with Top Contractor School, all that jazz?
Yeah. So Real Brian Hess is my social media handle everywhere. So you can find me easy. RealBrianHess.com is my personal website. TopContractorschool.com is that website. ThePavementGroup.com is our website here. And there's resources in all those places that you can easily connect with me. But if you shoot me a DM, man, if something that I said here, you want to ask an additional question about, by all means, shoot me a DM. I'll always answer you. And just appreciate everybody listening and watching and paying attention. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this. I certainly did myself. So.
Oh, they for sure did. We could rap for hours. So audience, you know what to do. Share the show. And if someone like Brian offers you his DMs, I'd take advantage. Thanks again, brother, for being on the show. Spartans, remember, the good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.